Chicago 670 The Score. What's up, Tim? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm
But are
I'm full
you?
You see, you
circle.
said I'm doing great one time, and we're like, all
Uh,
right, good. But I'm doing great. I'm doing. You had to like reconfirm it with yourself and us. I mean, was that for us or was
yeah,
that for you?
I'm telling myself that. I think the worst part about this whole season is just did yesterday even feel like game day? Were you guys
No.
excited all Monday? Or was
No,
it just
no.
No, it's funny, like, because my son's home from college, and we sat on the couch, and we were watching the Bulls for like 40 minutes, and we flipped, so we got to flip over to the Bears. I was like, all right. So the ball is about to be kicked off, and he looks at me and goes, this game sucks already.
yeah. Yeah, I've been posting I posted a little funny video of my 8-year-old Mac, and he was last week. I posted it of him watching the Bears or something, and just he had the quote of all the teams we like suck, and I posted that, and a bunch of people were tagging Child Protective Services, and I feel like they weren't wrong.
The good news about that, at least in Illinois, Tim, is we've got a guy on the inside. That we have
Yeah.
we do. We've got a plant. Our guy Quad City Pat. We've got a guy
Yeah.
who is a career DCFS guy who we could do and make any Bears exceptions and keep us all out of prison.
Yeah, I feel bad. I don't know. It's just so yeah, we can get into it, but it's just so ugly. I mean, I just shot the breakdown. I just watched the tape, just shot the breakdown, and the first third and two, there's real no viable options. Like we have slants stacked in the same window. We have a screen, but you would think, hey, we need to be 2-on-3 for the screen to work and the backer show, so you can see why he would get off it. And that just to me is a microcosm of where this offense is right now. Of we're dropping back with no viable options, and then when we do have a viable option, it seems like Caleb's eyes are in the wrong spot, which is kind of unexplainable because it's his eyes have been better earlier in the year. I don't know. It's just gotten so bad to where you kind of just want to get to the off. In my opinion, is let's just get to the off season, but you also got to play him for reps. I don't know.
We've
It's
broken
tough.
him.
But his eyes are worse, though.
Yeah.
And I hate using the term seeing ghosts, but it looks like what used to be, touchdown to check down is now, am I going to die? And now who can I find anywhere close to me with the same colored jersey that I'm wearing?
Yeah, the thing that's hard, and I don't want this to sound even worse, but the thing that worries me is if his eyes were just nonstop on the rush, I think all of us would kind of understand it, right? To me, it's you got teed off on all year. If your eyes are kind of down, hey, I get it, right? There's been a bunch of free runners, we'll correct that this offseason. My bigger worry is there was we call it double spot, but spot is basically think the outside receiver has what we would call a lean, like a 45-degree angle coming in towards the ball, and he sits at 6 yards, right? So it's not a hitch is straight vertical, sit at 6. A spot is where you lean 45 degrees, sit at 6. So we have double spot, meaning our number 1 and number 2, our furthest outside receivers in a 3-by-1. They both have spot. Cole Kmet's on the corner route. It's a super standard double spot with the corner, a variation of timber, right? If you want to sound really smart at the Super Bowl party when everybody's running timber, which is the double under, but it's with double spot. And it's wide open. It's the one that everybody keeps talking about where you see the screenshot of Rome and he's wide open. And the double spot, Rome is actually the first progression on that concept. And instead, his eyes are backside looking at the slant, which you would kind of understand. Hey, they walked up pressure. So they had, they were showing cover 1. So you're thinking, oh, hey, if I get pressure, I'm going to throw this slant. The only issue is they bail on the pressure, and Caleb's eyes are looking right at the guy who's bailing on the pressure, and he never gets to the spot, and he stays on the slant. Those are the things that are weirding me out because it's almost as if he's going up to the line and, oh, I decided, hey, pressure's coming. I'm going to go to my pressure adjust, and then from there, the play's over. He doesn't then continue to play where, hey, we're going to snap this football. Some stuff's going to change now, and we need him to keep playing. And it's hard on me because you guys know, I'm probably so biased to quarterbacks. It's hard on me to really tee off on the kid because I have no idea what that building's like right now. What I can tell you is based on our receivers' tempo, it looks like we're as uncompetitive as we've been. I didn't think it could get worse without Flus, and it like seems like it's getting further along. And I don't think that's an indictment on Thomas Brown. I just think it's like the nature of this organization. But it's frustrating to watch. And then there's some stuff that's I'm not enjoying seeing from Caleb because I just don't want these habits to set in.
Like what?
To where instead of jumping into year 2 and correcting things, we now also have these like other addressable issues, because I think that's how then, that sophomore season becomes another rookie season, which from a development standpoint, like we just can't have, right? We got to keep powering forward.
What are the other addressable issues?
Well, the stuff that we've kind of talked about all year with the footwork, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, we want to tie the feet to the routes. I think there's something to be said about our quick game processing. I think when you get him in downfield and shot plays where it's kind of more traditional, true, pure progression, I think he does a lot better than when it's kind of what we would call a PSL, which is a pre or post snap look, where it's more coverage indicative of what side you work. But those were kind of where I'm like, oh man, hey, those are addressable. We can run at those super easy. Now it's more like, wait, what's going on with some of these choices that you're making pre-snap and post-snap? And then like, is there more, I don't want to say learning football because that's like such a like kindergarten way of saying it, but is there more, do we need to really address more like, hey, coverage shells, and this is what can be presented out of this shell, this is what can be presented out of this shell, and helping him get to where we're making better choices pre-snap? Or is it as simple as, they actually wanted him to start with the slant on the double spot concept, and we actually have nothing to worry about because anyone else teaches it more coherently would teach you of, hey, only against pressure start with the slant, everything else do work the double spot. And if that's the case, then we're okay. That's the downside of, not being in the building and knowing what's getting relayed to him. And what I would also argue is the downside of promoting Thomas Brown again is now he's in charge of the whole team versus able to lean into what we need to get done at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, that last point you just made, Tim, that I'm just echoing that sentiment.
Yeah, agreed. I do want to expand a little bit because what we were seeing last night, I've said this a little bit on the post-game show, Tim, I said a little bit today. There were some familiar routes with familiar targets, receivers, Keenan Allen specifically. That's kind of my benchmark when it comes to evaluating Caleb Williams. And as we've said, those two were hitting pretty effectively against teams like the Jaguars. There was progress that was showing there. And you saw what happened. There were some throws to him where the timing was off, albeit Keenan Allen also, I'm sure, would take some of the responsibility for that as well. But even the end zone read to me was an indication of some regression. And I think it's because he's afraid to throw a pick, but you would know better than I would as to what you're seeing and why.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're dead. I mean, that third down miss, right, where Keenan Allen wraps the linebacker and he's wide open and he's doing what every great receiver does, which is we call it throttling in the window, right? Like you don't want to be full speed accelerating through the window because that's how you run into backside defenders. Really, receivers do it because they don't want to run into a hit. Quarterbacks appreciate it because we don't want them to run us into an interception where we don't see the backside guy. But he's throttling in the window, and then Caleb throws it as if he's coming full speed out of it, and he's clearly not, and it's just we sail it. And those are the kind of things that I think it's more alarming with Caleb because it's the things that we thought we weren't going to have at all anymore, right? I think when we dealt with it with Justin in the past, we kind of viewed Justin as this dynamic kind of weapon, right? And you see how Pittsburgh utilizing him now, right? That he plays 4 plays a game for him, and it's read zone, and he usually does pop off like a 20-yard gain, right? So we viewed him as like this dynamic weapon, so when he would miss stuff like that, you kind of go, all right. Well, Caleb, he's a dynamic weapon from the standpoint of the scramble, and he can create a play out of nothing. But he's not that like, hey, let's get downhill, run quarterback power. So the misses like we saw on third down, those are I don't want to say more worrisome, but they kind of are because we're not adding the element of QB power. And not that I want to, right? I'm not sitting here being like, hey, we need someone who can run power because that's just not what you need. But I do think it's one of those where it's even more worrisome. It's so funny because it's like we had a couple scramble plays, and I know the one where he spins out twice and just chucks it up to Keenan Allen. You kind of look at it and you go, that's terrible quarterback play. But outside of those, we had some scramble plays that were pretty darn good, right? And you had some of those plays where it's like the superstar ability is there, right? Like the plays that you actually don't have to win, we have. What we don't have and what we're missing are those boring plays. And that's where, for me, it's like, you have to have those to win. Like, we can't miss that third down where the receiver wraps. We can't miss moving the chains there. We can't miss the spot concept. Those are things that are just like non-negotiables to win in the NFL. What we have right now is we have the we have the like upside, right? We have this superstar ability, and we see it week in and week out of him being able to create and make a play. What we need to see more of is the boring stuff, in golf, right? The 4-foot par putts, right? We need those boring plays so that we can continue to stack wins. And, it's like I'm listening to way too much Bear stuff now, but it's like, then you start talking, you hear people talking about the division, and it's like, this division is so good now. And then you look at the other coaches in the division, and you're like, what are we going to do? We have basically, I would argue, we have two of the more creative play callers in the National Football League, right? In Green Bay and Minnesota. And then we have a guy who just like, Dan Campbell, love him or hate him, is one of those dudes that like, it would be hard to not go and want to play hard for him, right? Like the Gibbs kid leaks every single code name on the whiteboard, basically, in a post.
Yep.
He did.
And he has the kids back, right? Like, think of how radical of a difference it is. In Detroit, we leak every possible code name, right? The Kardashians, and that's naked. I mean, how fitting is that, right? A perfect call, and we leaked it, so we can't even use it anymore. So they leak it. The head coach gets up there and says, I'll give you our playbook. I don't care. I've got my guys back. We're going to go out there and win. Meanwhile, then we had a head coach who legitimately found ways to put us in a worse position and goes up, and it's his fault, and he doesn't take any ownership. I got Dan Campbell taking ownership over like our players leaking stuff, but in Chicago, we can't find a guy who says, hey, guess what? It turns out the 20 yards before the Hail Mary actually mattered. It's just like so radically different. And we're now catching up to it. And it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And I think it's compounding too, because like, I actually like enjoy, a lot of people, and I get it, right? Like, there's so many things in the comments that you don't like, but like, I actually like Bears fans. I just think they're miserable because it's like been so painful. I just think it's extra frustrating because I have zero confidence that anyone's ever going to bring them a championship until Jenkins Lee goes public, and then I'll buy the team, but that's going to be a long ways away.
He's looking for 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We can help you.
Tim. So I understand that you believe Bears fans are a product of their environment, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying. And I'm more concerned, I think, maybe either as concerned or more concerned than you are about what you just described when you talked about the boring plays for Caleb. My whole thing for the last 2 weeks has been COE, Caleb over everything. And when I see the number of misses, whether it's just a simple short third down, if I complete this pass, it is a first down. Or it's someone running down the field and he's overshooting them by a good 10 yards.
Yeah.
How concerned should I? I mean, is my concern well-founded? I mean, you've been watching what I've been watching all season, and this has become a consistent thing. Yeah, he can wow you, but the boring plays are the ones that keep drives alive and get you into the red zone and eventually, hopefully, into the end zone.
Here's what I tell you. I would tell you that we should be concerned. And
yes.
like I normally am like the voice of like calm, right? Here's what I tell you. I think we should be concerned, and here's why. No matter your circumstances, you're still building scar tissue, right? Like, let's equate it to life. Okay. There's a lot of people and they have like really bad situations happen. And then, they start doing whatever they start doing to compensate for it or cope with it. They're still building scar tissue. They're still building bad habits. Right. And we all can empathize with, man, you go through heartbreak or whatever it is, and you start doing something, we can all empathize with, man, I understand why they're doing it. It still doesn't make it then better for their liver, let's say, right? And
yes.
That's what we're seeing with an NFL quarterback. We're seeing like everybody understands you've been through now 2 play callers your rookie season. You're getting teed off on from a protection standpoint. Your receivers aren't always, coming down with everything. Everybody understands, hey, why are we now seeing these misses, or why are we seeing this stuff? A lot of people can empathize or understand with it. Guess what? We're still getting dog reps, right? We're still getting really bad reps, which aren't then going to help. So to me, it's like, am I ready to like punt on Caleb Williams as an NFL quarterback? Absolutely not. Is it something where, does it need to be concerning? Yeah, it is, because we're not building quality scar tissue. We're building scar tissue that someone's going to have to come in and rehab. Like, look at the guy that just beat us last night, right? He had a lot of terrible scar tissue in New York. It took him finding a guy like Kevin O'Connell, and now all of a sudden he's playing at a pretty high level, right? Darnold. So to me, I just hope we can find Caleb Williams, his Kevin O'Connell, and we can do it in Chicago. And then it's not a situation where we're like, all right, who's the next guy that we're going to bring up there and build a bunch of, bad scar tissue for, and then we'll trade him away, and then he can go try to do it somewhere else. We've got to find that guy who can come in and kind of nip it in the butt right now, because there are things that have to improve. Like, the footwork has to improve. The eye placement, it's a non-negotiable. It's like a very base level. We need this for success. Those have to improve. Those can't be things that at the end of next year, we're saying, oh, all right, we'll spend it, year 2 to 3 off season. It can't be those sorts of things.
So what do we do right now? There's 3 games left.
Yeah, Tim.
That's a lot. Yeah, and I keep pointing out that you're getting a crash course in Bears fandom this year, yep. Tim, but we've never been here. And those of us who've been fans all our lives have never been here, where they've fired a coach before the end of a season, where we have games that are going on under these over-promoted staffs. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't want any more bad scar tissue. At the very least, stop digging. At the very least, don't make it any worse. What could they do offensively to at least stop some of the negative issues from getting worse?
Oh, man, that's such a great question. It's funny because I think they're actually trying to do that. Okay. Like, I think they're attempting. When I watch how we've called plays the last 2 weeks against the Niners and the Vikings, I legitimately think what we're attempting to do is play the rest of the season. Like, we're attempting to Madden sim the rest of the season, but appease our fans by running Caleb out there. But like, how many 4th and shorts did we not put the ball in our quarterback's hand?
Right.
That's insane to just run toss and then dive as if we're a football team that can move people and run dive. Like, that's just who we are. So to me, it's like, it looks like we're trying to do that. We're like running dumbed down concepts. We're running them multiple times. Like, we ran dagger. Dagger is where the number 2 receiver runs the seam. The outside receiver runs the big end. We ran a variation of dagger like 4 times. You rarely see repeat concepts in the NFL. Nevertheless, like 4 times in the same half. We're just like, it seems like we're doing that. So I guess my argument would be how to not build up scar tissue is actually put in a coherent game plan and continue to be aggressive. I would rather not have this dumb streak. And I don't know.
The interception, the non-interception streak?
Yeah, I'd rather not have this dumb streak of like, oh, hey, we haven't thrown a pick. Well, we got our asses kicked, but we didn't throw a pick. Like, I'd rather not have that streak and be aggressive with the football, hunt with the football, put in a coherent game plan, and attempt to win a football game than what we're doing right now, which it really genuinely seems like we're running preseason plays. We're trying to get Caleb Williams reps without risk of injury. And like, the other thing too is, if that's really your concern, take him out of the game, because he's not a minimized risk of injury type player, because he'll extend plays. So if that's really your concern, just take him out of the game. But he needs the reps. He needs to be in there. We need coherent game plans. We need to be aggressive. And I also, like, if there's anything, if Thomas Brown was listening to this, that I would charge them with is, like, people are going to judge you. Not that many people are going to have empathy for like your situation. So if this is from the top of like, hey, let's just find ways to get through, I'd be sitting there kind of being like, all right, sounds good. And then when they leave, we'd be putting in an aggressive ass game plan, because people are going to judge me based on this. And if this is the film that rolls out the last 2 weeks that we've seen, like, this is bad for everybody. This is not good football. The players, but also the coaches. There's not like a lot of schemes where you sit there and go, man, this is somebody I really need to give a chance to. Like, it's not good. So I would be dialing it up, and I would just rather have him throw 4 picks trying to be aggressive with the football than continue to go 17 for 29 for like a stat line like a high school kid has, and we didn't throw a pick. It's like, well, we also weren't competitive basically at any point of that game, it felt like.
Oh, I have one nomination, the Bills, for your film study.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Functional.
That'll get the taste out of your mouth a little bit. Tim Jenkins, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
That's Tim Jenkins.